This week, we have a look at the 2024 horror film Godzilla X Godzilla Kong, Godzilla by Kong, The New Empire. This is
Godzilla
episode.
Godzilla slash Kong?
No, I just like the idea that it's Kong designed Godzilla.
It is one Godzilla long by one Kong wide. It is
Alan Ladd's wardrobe provided by Godzilla by Kong.
This week, the 2020 Jason. All right, let me do this.
We've broken Jason. It's great.
I'm sorry.
Oh
okay, all right. Take 3. Hello and welcome to Castle of Horror, the show dedicated to horror movies and awesomeness. This week we have a look at the 2024 horror film Godzilla Kong, The New Empire. This is episode 432. Bear in mind, if you haven't seen today's movie, we're going to be talking about it from the perspective of horror fans who have seen it. So warning, spoilers ahead. From Denver, Colorado, I'm your host, Jason Henderson, publisher at Castle Bridge Media, home of the Castle of Horror anthology. With me from Austin is Tony Salvaggio, lead singer and bassist of the band Deserts of Mars and lead guitarist of the band Rise from Fire. Say hello, Tony.
Howdy.
Howdy. Also in Austin, Mr. Drew Edwards is the writer-creator of the long-running underground comic Halloween Man, which you can find at Global Comics. He is a Best Writer Ringo nominee, Austin Chronicle Best of Austin Award winner, and a member of the PEN America Fellowship. Say hello, Drew.
I'm also a Titan veterinarian.
A Titan veterinarian, a Titan dentist. And finally, also in Denver, a person I've been working with a lot lately, which is kind of cool. Color commentary from Julia Guzman of Guzman Immigration of Denver. Say hello.
Hello. I'm laughing because people are going, "Wait, aren't you guys married?" I think you've been
We are
like...
indeed married, but I've gotten to do paper. I've lately been doing paperwork for you in your practice, and it's been really fun. I've a tiny little bit of it, and I'm fabulously I'm learning a great deal. So okay, Godzilla by Kong, The New Empire is a 2024 American monster film directed by Adam Wingard, which was, by the way, I believe the name of a bad guy in the X-Men in the 80s. It is produced by Legendary Pictures, distributed by Warner Brothers. It's a sequel to Godzilla vs. Kong from, believe it or not, 3 years ago. That blows my mind that it came out in 2021. That is the film that made me believe that these creatures, they looked real. This is the 5th film in the MonsterVerse franchise. It is the 38th Godzilla movie. It is the 13th King Kong movie. It stars Rebecca Hall, Brian Tyree Henry, Dan Stevens, Kaylee Hottle, Alex Ferns, and Fala Chen. And several of those are reprised from the previous film.
And King Kong and Godzilla.
And King Kong and Godzilla and Mothra. This movie has been doing really well. It grossed $436 million on a budget of less than half that. So about 135, 150, making it the 5th highest grossing film of 2024. So here we are. I jokingly called it Godzilla by Kong. It's Godzilla X Kong, or apparently Godzilla Kong is how we're supposed to say it. And I'm excited to talk about it. Let's do this. Get our opening thoughts. Tony, Julia, Drew, and then I'll go. Tony, I mean, what are your opening thoughts about Godzilla Kong?
I liked it okay. I think it's hard. Like, no offense to the filmmakers, but once Minus One comes out, it's really hard to kind of go back to monster wrestling in my head. Like I know, but yeah, I had fun with it. I got to take some friends to the draft house to see it. That was cool.
That is cool.
You know, it's I'm sure we'll get into it, but it's more of a Kong movie than it is a Godzilla movie, and that's okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, Kong's cool. But it's a movie I don't know if I love the movie, but it's good fun. There's tons of monster action. There's adventure. It has a kaiju veterinarian. It ties back into Monarch, which I think the series, actually I like the series a lot. So, you know, to me it's a little mixed, but if you want a fun ride of an adventure movie, pretty darn good, you know?
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Julia, what are your thoughts?
I thought it was There was some neat ideas. I liked getting to know Kong better, and Mini Kong, Suko, as apparently the name is. And I enjoyed all the nonverbal communication that takes place. There's
Mm.
actual sign language, then there's Kong sign language, and then there's all the psychic stuff, the telepathy that's going on. So I thought it was neat how much the film communicates without language, or
Mm.
without spoken language. Um, that was neat. So I enjoyed that as just kind of a different take on MonsterVerse movies, I think. And there was lots of fun monster fighting, people like that, and kind of neat to see Kong and Godzilla team up for once against the anti Kong and anti Godzilla. So I thought it was clever. I enjoyed it.
Very cool. Thank you. Uh, Drew, what about you?
So I actually, no disrespect to Tony, I disagree that it is hard to go back to this kind of thing after Minus One. I think Minus One is great cinema. This is essentially a kids movie, and I'm sort of okay with that because I think the reason that Godzilla and in this instance also King Kong, the reason why they endure as characters is that you have kind of both versions. You have this like the silly monster wrestling version, and you have the more because you couldn't really let a kid watch Minus One, like they would be too scared, or at least I think a lot of kids. I mean, it depends on the kid, but this has a lot of, I might get flack on the internet for saying this, but this has a lot of art in it to me, like in the way that they did the monster characters, particularly Kong, like because he really is the star of this movie. They do such a good job of giving, him and frankly all the other monsters individual personalities, in a way that like in some way like I actually feel like Kong has more depth to him than most of the human characters in this movie. And it kind of makes me wish that they would do an all animated Hollow Earth movie, because there are so many scenes in this movie that are just monsters interacting with monsters. And I think with the level of facial expressions they are now doing with, I think that they could do like a completely animated movie and you would still be able to follow along. Like Julia was saying, like the not level of nonverbal communication is really impressive. And I mean, yeah, it's occasionally veers into very silly and also kind of like tropey American blockbuster type characters, but there's a lot that I was impressed and really enjoyed
I
watching
think
this movie.
you are right. Like I agree with your points. It's not so much like, oh, I have to have this eyebrow, we have this eyebrow thing, because boy, I love I love all kinds of movies. I think it's just like the way it's done for me, but there's a lot. I really do agree with you on like all the Kong stuff where he's hunting, and we get to see him like how he hunts and how he reacts, and all that stuff is actually like that is really good. And I would definitely, if they turn all of that into like a Hollow Earth Kong series, that would be amazing. I am totally with you on that. 200%.
What I find funny is how much the tone. I keep thinking. I was thinking about tone when we were watching this, and how much the tone has changed in the MonsterVerse series. So, like, yes, the 1998 movie, for instance, was often both an ID4 style, disaster film, but also had a lot of really lightweight characterizations. And did I say 94 or 98? Anyway, and this is is played for laughs often. It's a family friendly adventure, but I thought that it holds together pretty well. But I kept thinking about how different the tone is here from the beginning of the MonsterVerse, which was 2014, which unbelievably is 10 years ago. with Gareth Edwards' Godzilla. And if you recall, like, think about Gareth Edwards' Godzilla and how the tone of that one, it moves fast, it follows that Save the Cat beat, but generally it was quite dark, and you had the halo jumpers jumping down Godzilla and giving a sense of scale as they try to dive all the way down Godzilla's body. And we are so far from that now that you can't even see that anymore. It's kind of unbelievable to me that that's the same universe as
I think you're right. But I think I've been seeing a lot of think pieces pop up over the last several weeks on the internet about why the MonsterVerse worked and why the DC EU did not work.
I'm interested. What are
And
people theorizing?
well, there's a lot of different thoughts on it. To me, it comes down to the movies are just better. But like, I think also part of it is, even though you have an overall story that they're continuing, when they bring these different filmmakers in, they really do give them the breathing room to tell what they want to tell with it. Like, there isn't really, because like the Monarch show is just from last year, and it is much more serious than this is, but it's part of the same film series, so I think the fact that they're letting the people who make these movies having like freedom to create within the sort of overall canvas, I think that's resulting in movies that are actually like watchable, whereas like everything with the DC EU, the DC movies, everything was kind of in this sort of po-faced tone that was set by Man of Steel. And all the other filmmakers kind of had to work with that. And then when they started trying to change, you had this sort of, I guess, tonal whiplash that didn't kind of work. Like, because this was sort of gradual too. Because
like Skull Island is still pretty completely straight, and if you think about that film, and it's really, when do you think the tone really starts, all the cells
I think King of the Monsters has like, it's sort of like the in between, because they're still really, they're treating the monsters as these like terrifying things, but like there's also like a looser quality to it. But it'll be interesting to see if, because this movie was basically done when -1 came out. It'll be interesting to see if in the next one, if they do kind of go back to some of the darkness, maybe in reaction to -1. But I could be completely wrong. Like, it could be that Toho likes having, them do their dark, cerebral, Japanese Godzilla movies like Shin Godzilla and -1, and then they're perfectly fine with like the more candy colored, in this case literally hot pink, family friendly version of the franchise.
I kind of hope that like, since Monarch is kind of more serious, I kind of hope that, I think I'm okay now with blockbuster. Like, I still, as much as I would like to see kind of going back a little bit more to the 2019 Godzilla.
2014.
2014, that's what I meant. 2019 on the brain. The 24, as much as I would like to see them go back to the 2014 Godzilla a little bit more, I think it's okay that this is what it is. And then I wouldn't want the Monarch show to be that, I guess is what I'm getting at. And I think that, again, like, you can watch Godzilla 54 and you can also watch Godzilla versus Megalon, and both of those are fun for totally different reasons, right? Or interesting, or cool cinema. So I don't know. I think there's
I'm glad.
Both, so I'm with you.
I mean, it's cool that we're talking about tone, because I think it's the most. It was the thing that I was actually thinking about the most while I was watching this movie, is that it dares to be a little silly, but here's what's great about it: it's silly, and yet I feel like it commits to the bit, and it's watchable, because if you think
it's not heartless.
Right.
Like all the Kong stuff has a lot of heart to it.
Absolutely.
And
I mean, no, just because it can be funny or silly, or I mean, silly is the best word I can think of. Anything where you have, basically strangely just sort of semi-alien islanders with headbands and stuff. You're in the realm of silly, but it doesn't. It's not campy, and this is difficult to say exactly. Basically, this is like Alan Alda in that movie where he's saying comedy, if it bends, it's funny. If it breaks, it isn't. This stuff you have to be real careful with, or eventually people will just reject it. Like, I can't watch this anymore. This has
Well,
gotten too dumb.
I said this to Tony right after we both saw it. It makes me a little sad that I think that this is a better Ghostbusters movie than Frozen Empire. Because I feel like this has more laughs in it than the last. Like it is very funny at times, and it's got kind of at times sort of Sam Raimi kind of sense of humor
Mhm.
about it. But it also not to jump all over the place with my pop culture references, but it also at times reminds me a lot of an anime, like not just like the tone of it, but like visually, like
Yes, right, and hold that thought because I want to get back to that. But again, if you think about the Roland Emmerich movie or Emmerich, I apologize if I said that wrong, but the 1998 film that has jokes and people going about their professional lives and and a lot of like kind of situational humor and stuff, but it falls flat somehow because you don't actually connect.
Well, this movie also does not make fun of Godzilla. It has some
Yeah,
fun with him like sleeping in the Roman Colosseum
isn't that great?
like a giant alley cat, but like
That was really good. Actually, I like
yeah.
that bit.
It's his
Yeah.
actual
It's
cat.
kinda-
No, it's based on Adam Wingard's actual cat.
I believe that.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
but
that worked. Yeah.
it's fun. It's funny, but like you never get the sense that like the people who made this movie are like, oh, we're making a Godzilla movie and we're gonna laugh because we think Godzilla is stupid. Like the Godzilla '98 movie, like first of all, they changed so much about Godzilla, like it barely feels like a Godzilla movie, other than the fact that you have a giant reptile in it. But
Yeah.
I still say that if it had just been like, here's a beast from
20,000
20,000 fathoms,
fathoms.
if beats from 20,000 fathoms maybe remake, we would have been, oh, okay, that works, right? Like so
Yeah.
much of it would
Yeah.
make so much in my brain makes more sense that it's that and I have friends who love it, and actually we got a really good, we talked about it before, we got a really good Godzilla cartoon out of that movie.
Damn
So
straight.
that's a pretty good win. I didn't watch it at the time because I was like, why would I do it? Now I'm like, oh crap, I missed out on some cool, like that cartoon was pretty good.
I just
So
want to take a moment to say I grew up with the Godzilla 1980s cartoon, and
oh yeah,
it was like 1970. It was like
it was 70s, like late
I
70s,
guess it was maybe
right?
like 1978. Yeah, the Godzilla cartoon in the 70s was the best. It kind of went along with the show. The Godzilla looked like the Shogun Warrior Godzilla, and yeah, I
I
can still
mean,
sing
when
that
you watch
song
it
today.
now, it's the best for different reasons. I don't think it holds up to the
Fair.
like, but we had that, and that was the fact that you could watch a Godzilla movie at
Yeah.
which came on randomly when we were kids, and then you could Saturday morning you were guaranteed more Godzilla.
Yeah.
No matter what, that was magic. Even if it doesn't work as well, maybe as an adult, but like, boy, at the time that was pretty darn
I
amazing.
can't believe that the MonsterVerse has now been around for 10 years, meaning, if you think of this, like by 10 years into the James Bond series, Sean Connery was gone. Like, like by 10 years into Sony's use of Spider-Man had been rebooted like twice. 10 years is a long time for a
But
series
it's
to actually, yeah.
if you look at it as part of the overall Godzilla mythology, that's a drop in the bucket. And King
True.
Kong has been around even longer than that. Like these characters are beloved.
Mhm.
Like when I see those people who there was also like why did this work but the DC movies didn't? Oh, why did this movie make so much money? Like I see that and I'm like, because people like these characters. Like they wouldn't have been around that long if they hadn't. And they're making movies that people find enjoyable overall. Like it's not really super hard arithmetic. Like the Zack Snyder DC stuff just wasn't working. They do not feel like Man of Steel has merit in it. Like I like it better than a lot of other people, but it doesn't feel like it feels like an alternate reality Superman.
Yes, like an Elseworlds.
Yeah, it's not what you want. Like this, like Kong feels like Kong, Godzilla feels like Godzilla. There are differences, sure, but they still feel true to what you want from them. Like even and they're adding stuff that like I think like okay, so like in this movie, they take a little bit from Godzilla 1985, where we have Godzilla going from nuclear reactor to and charging up and feeding. But they do it in such a way that like you actually see him like sort of inhaling in the radiation.
Yes.
Which is not something that, I think we've ever really seen. So like they're taking stuff that's established from the other movies, but they're also adding in bits to the mythology too.
Well, and I think it's even it's a knowing, unlike with the DC films, which sometimes seem sort of embarrassed by prior incarnations, except for in the use occasionally of old themes. But here they are winking at prior versions. Again with this subterranean people with the headbands and stuff. This is a direct. Tony, please forgive me. Which Godzilla movie was it that had the bearded guy with the mustache and the headband? Was that Megalon?
Yeah, Megalon, and like all the Lemuria stuff and the Moo stuff is just like, yeah. I was gonna mention like that. That's stuff that is pretty great. They definitely are going, hey, we've seen those movies too, come along for the ride, right?
Yes, right. We can give you the most expensive and visually impressive version of those ideas that have been presented in the past as possible. I mean, for instance, to Julia's point about pantomime used here, back in the 70s, if Godzilla was going to communicate, sometimes he did it with pantomime, and there was at least once when he spoke, they had subtitles. This is changing it so that everybody is basically doing just amazing pantomime, and there are these periods where the apes are talking to one another, and it goes for like 20 minutes, and exactly what they're saying all the time.
Yeah,
that's pretty impressive.
incredible.
Yeah,
that was a Godzilla versus Gigan, by the way. And there's two versions of that. Like the Japanese version has a different like little word balloon thing, and
so in Gigan is the one with the word balloons. Megalon is the one with the subterranean people who worship Megalon.
Yeah,
that one also has Jet Jaguar, which has yet to make an appearance, but probably should.
Well, he showed up in the anime, so
Oh,
yeah.
Goodness gracious, cool.
Yeah, and they've already popped the giant mech cherry with Mechagodzilla, so I mean, all bets are kind of off at this point. One thing I will say, speaking of the previous film, I do think that this is actually quite a bit of an improvement, actually, and I enjoyed Godzilla versus Kong decently. Like I thought the monster fights were great. I liked the use of color in it.
Yeah.
I know I enjoyed it more than Tony did even, but one thing we both agreed on is that a lot of the human characters were first of all unnecessary, because again they were going off of that disaster movie.
I like that you name checked Irwin Allen. That made me happy.
Well, yeah, like they want to have a big all-star cast, that kind of thing, and there was just too many damn characters, and a lot of them were stupid and this movie wisely, and not to keep comparing it to the recent Ghostbusters, although I did joke after watching this that if you want to make a blockbuster in 2024, you have to have an ice monster and you have to have Empire in the title. But one of the problems I had with
I kept calling it Godzilla, Kong, Frozen Empire. I just couldn't.
yeah, there you go. I I liked Frozen Empire, but my complaint is that it had too many characters. This movie had just enough. It pared down the amount of characters from the last movie, and so everything had more breathing room. It also spent more time with the real stars of the movie, which are King Kong and Godzilla. So,
Godzilla's barely in it, but
Godzilla's definitely, he gets top billing, but he's definitely the co-star. But I mean, he just won an Oscar, so I think.
Can we talk about how Godzilla
so
and
great.
Kong have changed? For instance, like how starting with Kong, how is Kong, because I kind of had to look this up a little bit, but how has Kong changed? And I mean just since the last movie. Like he's been redesigned a little bit and his character has changed slightly.
I mean, he looks older. He's got more gray in his
longer beard.
In this movie, he gets a metal tooth, and a metal arm, for what it's worth.
Yeah, he's got a gauntlet now. He's got a cool.
So convenient that Robo Kong arm was lying around.
Yeah.
Well, imagine if you're a kid. I couldn't stop thinking. I was thinking about this all the time. Imagine you're a kid and you're with your friends, and remember what you say when you're in the schoolyard and you go, okay, let's pretend that there's a bionic arm. Okay, fine, there's a bionic arm. It's nearby. Here it is. It's sort of a, because kids are the perfect.
To have a metal giant tooth that would be perfect.
Yeah, the kids are perfect improv people because they're always like, you bet.
Yes,
let's do it. Sure. He's got a tooth problem and they're gonna fix him. And he's got a hand and we got a glove. Great. I love that this movie. I was just grinning the whole time because the movie's always like no problem to any problem it brought up.
They had to find a way to give him his electrical powers from Toho Kong.
Oh, I hadn't thought about that. Goodness gracious.
That's the whole. I'm convinced that's the whole thing. They had that. They were like, well, huh?
No, go ahead. Finish your thought.
Well, I feel like that there were a lot of fans that were like, oh, Kong should have his electrical powers from the Toho movies, and this is how we're going to justify that.
Yeah. They always go for a slight grounding, even if the idea is still silly. They put an extra layer of grounding on a crazy idea. And so, sure, you have Robo-Kong.
Before we got too far away from from Bionic Kong, Robo Kong, whatever, Iron Kong, whatever you want to call him. I wanted to talk a little bit about Dan Stevens because I just really enjoyed that character of Trapper. I thought it was such a fun, sort of. He kind of had a Chris Pratt Star-Lord energy about him. It was such a fun character to have be this Titan veterinarian. Just shows up and conveniently has the metal tooth and all that, and it's just he was great. I really enjoyed him. I thought he lightened the mood a lot for some stuff that could have otherwise been either dull or dark.
Not continuing though, you were asking about how Kong has changed. Specific with this iteration of Kong, like we look at Skull Island, which I just rewatched, and I think that still kind of remains my favorite MonsterVerse movie. I think it's the best overall film, but Kong in that movie is still a monster. Like he's still something that you should be afraid of. Like he's eating people. Like he's generally a more benevolent monster, but still a monster.
Yeah.
And in this movie, throughout, the his evolution through this iteration of what Kong is, he might as well be like a 400 foot tall Bruce Willis. Like he is the main character of this movie, and they don't even pretend like he's not. Like he's
No, you follow him half the time.
Yeah.
You spend. It used to be novel. I mean, and I say that as though I'm complaining, but I'm not. In earlier films, it was kind of unusual when suddenly the camera would go up to the shoulder level or the head level of the monster. The camera stayed way down at 6 feet off the ground, and now the camera is 400 feet in the air and it's following these monsters around. They're characters,
Yeah,
going through
and
their
I
crazy
think
shit.
about
Yeah.
every time he slings the axe over his back and kind of smirks, it's like,
Yes.
oh, he's Arnold Schwarzenegger in Conan right now.
Yes.
Or when he literally, speaking of smirking, when he literally smirks because the other guy, Scar, was making fun of him for having the metal tooth, and then Scar loses his tooth, and
Yes.
Kong literally just kind of goes, ha.
Yes.
It's really cute.
Kong gets a lot of payback in this movie. He gets payback on the bad guy, but he also, he gets the womp on Godzilla a little bit after Godzilla, spanking his butt in the last movie.
I like this vision. They've really done some thinking about what is Kong, and in this vision, Kong is a lovable, gentle lunk who is, to people who are vulnerable. They've reinvented Kong as basically the man with no name, or as you say, is less Eastwood and more Bruce Willis, or.
Well, he's definitely got some Frank Frazetta hero in him.
Oh,
too.
thank you for saying Frazetta, because Scar King looks like a Frazetta character.
Oh, yeah.
With
Scar
those
King,
arms, the long arms and everything.
I don't want to jump ahead because I want to talk about the Godzilla and Mothra, but I have a lot of thoughts on Scar King because I thought he was very cool. But
So yeah, Kong has changed a lot. I had a Kong toy when I was a kid, and I looked it up. You can get an awesome new Kong action figure with the metal hand, and I'm like, I want that thing. I want.
I saw when I was at Staple this last weekend, there was a little boy with the new King Kong toy, and I got the talking about monsters with this little boy because I was like, why is Kong your favorite? And he likes Kong because he thought Kong was the toughest. And that little kid logic, and it's interesting, that's, I guess, why I, going back to my opening thoughts, that's why I really can't begrudge this movie for existing, because we're introducing, these whole other generation to these characters who might not necessarily be able to watch, Minus One, but they can watch this.
No,
and I think that's cool.
That's true. Has Godzilla changed as the Kong changes are apparent right away. You look at it and you go, I see a lot of changes.
Dragon Ball color, the pink.
Yes, that's true.
He has, in the fact that one thing I picked up on is, so you have this Godzilla response team where he's still trashing things, but he's in between the, hey, Godzilla's going to help people and save little kids and talk to Minya. He's in between that and Force of Nature Kong, because he's still trashing things, but he's also, they're going, hey, well, until he goes kind of, nuclear crazy, they kind of go, well, yeah, he trashes a lot of stuff, but he's taking care of the other monsters and keeping them in line. So he's not quite the friend of all people, Godzilla, that we've seen in other movies, but he's not the force of nature that we've seen. He's firmly in the middle. And I like that Monarch's all right, well, we got another Godzilla sighting, and this is gonna, and then he curls up in the Coliseum.
He kind of is more the Clint Eastwood character. He's a comic book anti-hero. He's
well said.
Because he still kills a lot of people just by them being bystanders. When he's swimming up that canal at that one point, his dorsal fins literally knock through a bridge, and we see cars going everywhere. When he's charging up at the nuclear reactor, there's some fighter pilots that get in his way, and they get nuked by his like Godzilla still gives no F's about,
Right.
like, because he's concerned about bigger things, like he's protecting the earth, not necessarily humanity. And I
Right.
like that that line, like
Sure.
Kong as like an ape has more of a relationship with humanity, but Godzilla, like, he doesn't go out of his way to, he's not the -1 Godzilla where he's like, yeah, I'm here to annihilate humanity. Like he's sort of he's like a big reptilian version of Frank Castle.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
also he is in fitting with the MonsterVerse. He's there to, no matter what, he's there to kind of keep the Titans in line.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's his big deal. That's an interesting conceit too. Like it's kind of neat that we get that.
That's the way they've lined up this universe now. There's a whole bunch of monsters. Godzilla has a natural king of the jungle sort of manner of he's going to keep, quote unquote, keep them in line. And Kong, his biggest rival, has been banished-ish, I suppose, to Hollow Earth. And
well, they
this is
even
neat.
call it Godzilla territory and Kong territory.
Yes. And I love, by the way, that you've got Rebecca Hall, who is this just absolutely fantastic actor, right? She's just wonderful. I've enjoyed her in everything I've seen, and I've seen her in tiny little haunted house pictures and big, blockbuster movies. And here, it's just so funny that you have these like Oscar caliber actors who are, in a movie like this where they have to pretend to read hieroglyphics about Godzilla
and they
fighting
have
an
to
ice
act against sticks with foam fingers on them, and
Yes.
the director yelling "roar" at them, and it's just amazing.
I love it. I mean, yeah.
That's being an actor in 2024, I guess. Like,
yeah,
but
yeah, we should all be so lucky, right? I mean, obviously, you want those gigs, but
she doesn't seem stuck up about it. Like I was reading some
she
interviews.
Thinks it's hilarious. She said she laughed. She was laughing like the whole time.
Well, and she doesn't phone it in, even though she's essentially like an exposition machine in this movie. Like she's there to explain the pulp inspired lore at us. And but
I liked how you said that. She's there to explain at us.
Yeah.
that's so true. Oh my
Although
gosh.
out of all of the human characters in this movie, she really is the only one with an arc.
Tell me more about that.
She does have a relationship with her adopted daughter. Yeah, and she's a Skull Island native, and then they find other members of her tribe in Hollow Earth, and you have her feeling self-conscious about that. Like there's enough of a character. Her and I guess Gia, her adopted daughter, like. But
I agree that she evolves more, because Gia always is kind of comfortable with the idea that she belongs with her mom, but the mom is the one who kind of goes through this whole thing of
and the funny thing is I don't think I've seen that before, or if I've seen it, I haven't seen it very much. It
feels sort of like an inversion of like a white savior trope to me, that and I may be giving this movie more credit for intelligence than it deserves.
I don't think so.
But
I think you're onto something, that she's like, I don't want to presume that I have something better to offer than this person's heritage. That's a very 2024 concept to play with, I think. That's really cool. Can we talk about the girl real quick?
I think we should.
Yeah, so in a sense, in this movie, Tony, you were talking about this beforehand. The character of the girl who has the word, please forget, say it again?
Gia.
The character of Gia, who is we think the last of her tribe. She has a psychic connection with the monsters. I thought when I was watching this, because I'd completely forgotten what had happened in the previous movies, I thought she was a new version of the Mothra twins.
She basically is.
Yeah,
I mean, that was definitely there was definitely that inspiration of what are they called? What is it called?
I call them the Peanuts for some reason.
No, but they have an I'm gonna find it. Hang on a second. Well,
Well,
anyway, proceed.
but in apparently, Tony, you were mentioning in previous movies in MonsterVerse, they had already introduced a new version of the Mothra twins, which I think maybe just to keep the characters down, they did not reintroduce here.
Yeah, I was kind of like, wait, we had Mothra twins. I think it works really well in this context, but it was kind of odd that they said, oh, and even that being a plot point of like, by the way, did you know I have a sister?
Yes.
That was
Yeah.
to bring it up that way and then kind of lose that is a little weird, but it works here. And Jason, by the way, the women who were in the movie were the Peanuts, like as
Yeah, but
they
the
were.
Shobijin
Oh.
is what I was trying to find out.
Right. But
Did you ever, yeah,
they were actually the Peanuts, and that's why you thought that. Just
Oh, I
yeah.
see.
by the way, also the Lemurians also were from Seatopia. They also are Seatopians in addition. So
Wonderful.
with their
I
wonderful
love the
head.
Toho goofiness. That's
Yeah.
just
What
that's
I
just
found
fantastic.
in the IMDb is it says Gia replacing the Shobijin entirely is actually a retcon of a setup from Godzilla King of the Monsters. During
Hmm.
Mothra's emergence from her cocoon, prior to her fetching the recharged Godzilla and entering the final battle, twin doctors and monarch scientists, I'm not going to try to pronounce, is it Eileen? Ling Chen? Yeah. As explained earlier in the movie, the twins, both played by the same actress, are third generation members of the Monarch organization. And a brief scene shows Dr. Chen closing her eyes and feeling Mothra's presence. It's intimated that they are Monster versus Shobijin, despite not being fairies that are only centimeters tall. Given that Mothra was killed in the battle against Ghidorah, it seems like their role might be finished. However, with Mothra returning, it stood to reason that they would have a role here. With Gia now taking on the role of Mothra's translator, it seemed like their presence has been retconned to little more than a callback to the original Toho Shobijin.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's a
I
big
mean, that's-
universe, so they could always come back later, but that does seem to be what's going on here. And I felt bad about it because if you're a kid playing, like reenacting these characters in the yard, if you're a girl, there's only one human girl. Like, shouldn't there be two so that if you have a sister, like she can play that character? I don't know. I was thinking about this. It was like, why aren't there two of these girls? But that's Tony.
Anyway, the girl who plays Gia, Kaylee, was amazing, and she, is in fact deaf. So they were doing a lot. They ended up changing a lot of how they cued people because they
I
most
didn't know that.
sound cues. So they were doing a lot of like light cues and everything. But anyway, I thought she was fantastic.
Oh no, she's wonderful. I didn't know that at all. I don't know anything about this actor. That's really cool. Wow. Okay, so the other new character, I mean, we should mention Brian Tyree Henry is Bernie Hayes. This is our
I wish of all the characters that they could, nothing against
this
him
is
as
our
an
comic
actor.
relief character, and
This is the conspiracy theorist from the last movie. And
yes,
I will be shocked if Tony does not feel the same way as me. But of all the characters to bring back, I really wish we would stop at least until we're in a different stage as a country. I'm tired of like romanticized conspiracy theorists. Like
interesting. Yeah.
Well, it's just because
No, you're not wrong. I just hadn't thought about that. Yeah,
there was a point where I enjoyed that trope. I mean, I liked the X-Files. I like Watchmen. I just feel like with the way real world conspiracy theorists have played out, like this guy isn't funny to me so much. To me, but I don't know. Maybe everybody.
Well, there
else
was less of that in this movie. This movie, really, he was just kind of the coward that playing against trappers, like uber confident, character. I don't even think they mentioned the fact that he was a conspiracy theorist.
Well, they mentioned his podcast because
he has
but
a
I'm
lot
saying,
of
like,
patter about that. But
actually, I will say this: that the podcast did get one laugh out of me when he mentions that he is being trolled by somebody named King Ghidorah Stan. Something that made me chuckle. But Tony, you were about to say something?
Yeah, I mean, the actor is doing all that he can with the material, and he's great at it. But as far as characters go, I didn't really like the comic relief scientist. I like the scientists okay, but when the comic relief stuff at King of the Monsters was painful to me.
Right.
And then this continuation of that was,
It
I
is
don't
funny
know.
that this is what they decide to continue. Maybe this stuff is decided by a committee. I have no idea, but
And
this,
again, like if any of the people who are doing the screenplay were for to listen and go, hey, well, that's your opinion, man. I thought it needed some comic relief. Like I get it. And it's one of those things that maybe doesn't work as well for me. I mean, there are some funny bits, and he plays it really well. But I am kind of with. I mean, you talk about X-Files. They're part of when X-Files came back, and there was a lot of conspiracy stuff. Even then, I was like, oh, I do not like some of this and how it's going. But that's again in fact, I only watched a few episodes because I was kind of like, they kind of leaned into it in a different way. If that works for you, that's awesome, right? Like, I'm only saying that how I felt about it.
Well, we
But
didn't really need the comic relief because Kong is his own comic relief.
yeah, I'm with you.
Well, and the stuff with the baby Kong is actually
absolutely,
that was actually pretty funny.
Oh, that was so cute.
And we should mention that new character as well, who sort of is, I hope, going to be a Christmas present for a lot of people as a little stuffed
although
animal.
But we get him instead of Minia, right? So like it's
Yeah.
flipped. This is a Kong movie. We get
Suko.
Baby Kong.
Yeah, that's
although
a really
there
good
is
point.
an underbelly of darkness there because it's implied that he is Scar King's kid, and
Right.
No, I know. Well, there is. That's why they have to lighten, because that whole world, the whole, as Ryan George called it, Hollower Earth, is that's a dark story with how Scar King abuses, because he's got his the anti Godzilla. What is that character's name?
Shimo.
Yeah, Shimo is controlled by pain by Scar King, and so that's just all of that's very dark. So they really did need to do some things to lighten it before they got us into that whole thing, because that was horrible the way he treated everybody.
The Scar King. I don't want to jump ahead too much, but
jump around. We're
the
doing
Scar
topic.
King to me was a really, even though he's not in the movie a lot, like he really doesn't come in until like the halfway point. But he was a pretty interesting villain and I loved his design, like as this big bald orangutan that's got like, he's like super lanky, and
yes,
he, I even like the fact that like Kong has the Godzilla fin axe, and Scar King has a whip made from a Godzilla tail.
Yes,
that looks like
that's actually as far as designs go, the fact that they've been, these creatures have been at war this long, and he's actually using a vanquished Godzilla tail. I'll give it up. That was really cool to me. If you're gonna add some lore in, that's the way to go. I actually thought that was pretty neat.
Well, and his personality with like the level of sadism there, like, and like you have him like sitting on his big, we called it like he is a very like sort of Frank Frazetta kind of
again,
image,
with the rangy, ropey physicality that a lot of Frazetta's characters had, where they looked like real bruisers. He's got those long ass arms and everything.
But we've never outside of like Mechanicon and King Kong Escapes, like Godzilla has several characters that are effectively bizarro Godzilla. Like you have Mecha Godzilla, you have Space Godzilla, Biollante, you have all these sort of like reflections of Godzilla, but we haven't really seen that done with Kong as much. And I feel like this is like really giving him like a true nemesis in a way. Like I just thought he was like a
and
really
also
cool
he gets to be the hero, because once he defeats that character, now he can come in and rescue all these people, all these apes who have been imprisoned by him.
Did you get flashes of? Forgive me, maybe, but to me, Temple of Doom. The moment he walks in and sees all of these people carrying rocks around this like lava pit, I was like, this is Temple of Doom territory.
It's all very, very pulpy. Like it's it's got that, like, even, like with the baby Kong, like it does. You're right, like it's not that dissimilar to Short Round. But sorry, Jason. Tony, did I talk over you again? I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I was just gonna say that we have yet to see. We'll see how this goes, because until Baby Kong teaches a child how to stand up to bullies, we'll see. Hopefully, it doesn't get to that, but that it could happen. Who knows? No, I thought there's a lot. I also, oh yeah, the other point though is it's interesting because he is also not. We've seen Kong. Kong was kind of this ruler. He was king, but he was fairly benevolent to other Kongs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Scar King is not that at all. So he is like a lot of the anti-Kong, because he's kind of twisted with rage, and he's every other ape there is there to serve him no matter what. And if you're tough enough, you can possibly be one of his like guard people. But everybody else, what's in it for me, kind of. And that is kind of interesting in the lore that they built up. That's not, when we saw the carvings and stuff in previous movies, Kong, when Kong was king, or whatever, the previous Kongs, right? Like they're fighting against Godzilla, but they all seem to get along,
Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting kind of twist to that. So.
Well, and Godzilla does have history with this character as well, because like if we are to follow the lore that's established in this movie, Scar King is millions of years old and has been banished down there when Godzilla's people and the Kongs were fighting. And I really do hope at one point they do a animated movie where we get to see the dinosaur ape war, because like just visually that's something I need to see.
The problem with it is that I will be super, I was enjoying this, but I was like, well, they're, with them being in caves or in the sand, I'm not seeing skyscrapers getting knocked over. I was like, when am I going to see some
I don't know.
skyscrapers?
They managed to kill.
And then it happened. Then they were like, here we go.
They managed to kill 1 million people, and nobody blinked an eye in this movie. Like there was
but that was
so
when they
many.
finally went to Rio de Janeiro. I was like,
but not just
here we
Rio,
go.
but like Italy. Like they just totally devastate. Godzilla devastates Italy, and there's just. I was counting every time there was a building. I'm like, there goes another 1,000 people. It's
almost like the people. I don't know how to think about that. It's almost like
Matt Frank made a comment about it online, and I think that he's kind of onto something. Is that if you existed in this universe, there would be a certain existential dread knowing that the best possible if a giant spider attacks your city, the best possible outcome would be a radioactive dinosaur coming and killing it, but still lots of people being smushed in the process.
Well, I was bummed that the pyramids got it. Like I was like,
exactly. I was so mad. I was like, oh my gosh, we're gonna go through like all the wonders of the world.
Like, not the pyramids. I was going to go see the pyramids.
I know.
No, you can't. Thanks, Godzilla fight.
There goes Mothra. There goes the tourism trade in Egypt.
Right,
and so underused. She just shows up to go stop fighting children.
That was cool. I did enjoy that.
Monster Mom.
Yes, yeah. I thought that was really, really neat.
In my head, Mothra showed up and used her teacher voice. Now you boys stop fighting.
With her arms crossed and her foot tapping.
Yeah.
Yes.
I feel like one of my favorite bits, though, in this movie, a few scenes before that, you want to talk about things that made, comedy that actually worked, is when Kong knocks Godzilla out with his robo-glove, him trying to drag Godzilla by his tail to the portal, the hollow. So something about that made me laugh so hard.
Yes.
It's very much They Live kind of action, right?
Yeah.
Yes. You're gonna put on these glasses.
Come to the portal. No, you can't make me come to the portal. oh, let's trash some, like, we're trashing some pyramids. Like, I'm gonna take you to the portal because we need to go to the portal. No, I'm not. Like, I feel like that's the, like, immediately I was like, holy crap,
That is
they
really
live.
funny. Oh my gosh. Yeah. This movie is really forgive me for giving my final thoughts so early, but this movie is really enjoyable. I mean, this is the kind of the fact that this is what we can do technologically now, and it can be delightful and not just
Well, I
dreary
mean,
is
we
nice.
have a whole zero gravity monster fight. Like,
Yes,
you
yes,
know,
that's
Oh
right.
yeah,
Oh,
that
I
whole thing
forgot all about
was
that. Yeah.
that to me was like something out of an anime. Like
Yes.
the whole boss battle was,
Yeah, I forgot all about that. Yes, because I was waiting for
well,
skyscrapers.
and for
So,
me
but you're right. That was really amazing.
as an MCU fan, it felt like an MCU superhero fight, because there's so much of that takes place in the air because they're like they can fly, a lot of them. So that's what I was thinking
They're
of.
always they're leaping, which I don't really know how this would work in zero G. I'm not saying it wouldn't. I just haven't really thought about it. But there's floating rocks, and they're springing off of these rocks, so they're using their leg muscles against a rock that's floating,
Hmm.
and not sending the rock hurtling in one direction. They're going in the other direction. Maybe it's doing both. Anyway, it works. They're doing this. I loved all of that. That was fantastic. It makes me think, we used to try, like I was thinking about Moonraker, right? And in Moonraker, suddenly people are floating around and shooting one another with lasers, and people really got off the train at that point. They were like, this is too silly. But somehow I didn't feel that way here. I was like,
well,
okay,
this is already one step removed from reality because we're talking about giant
giant
monsters.
Right.
monsters in whatever weird dimension this is. Yeah.
Underground kingdom,
Hollow Earth.
The notion that they've
Yeah.
went ahead and said, "Oh, by the way, conspiracy theorists, you're right. There is a hollow Earth."
And it has that natural light, which I still didn't quite get how
I
that
can't remember. They established
I
that
know
in
they
the
talked about
previous
it last
one.
movie, but I forgot how it
Yeah.
worked.
Yeah, there's a sun in the
you
middle of the hollow earth, by the way, according to, like, the core is not the true core, it's a sun.
Yes.
And in fact, I was kind of gonna make it one of my endorsements, but there's a choose your own adventure book that has the hollow earth. It starts as a Yeti book and then goes into the hollow
Sweet.
earth. And in fact, you can get
Oh,
sucked into the
fantastic.
sun like those typical choose your own adventure choices.
Yeah.
You're too high on a mountain, now you're sucked in the sun. It's like, why'd you give me that choice? I would never it sounds plausible one way, and then all of a sudden you're like,
Funny.
whoops, sucks for you for making the wrong choice. It sounded plausible. And that was a hallmark of a lot of those early choose your own adventure books. So that's how I learned about the hollow earth years and years ago, was through
That's really
choose your own
funny.
adventure books. But yes,
Tony,
you get
remind me,
into the
was
sun.
there a choose your own adventure where the Easter Island heads turned out to be computers? Is that
Maybe, and I have to, if it wasn't the direct choose your own adventure with the white covers and the red like banner, then I think there was, like, I don't know if it's pick a path, one of those, like, that sounds really familiar, and I'm gonna have to look that up.
I mean, I mean, I'm smart and everything, but I don't think I could just invent that out of whole cloth. I think there was something I read
I
where it
think
turned
that
out
there
they were
was an Easter
computers.
Island one. Probably you
You're
go
not
like,
thinking of
do
the
you want
Eternal.
to grab the spider, or do you want to get a stick, and then, like, you grab the stick and it was holding up an Easter Island head and crushes it.
That's so
That's
funny.
the way it's usually where, like, no, the spider is the dangerous one. Nope, sorry, the stick was holding the Easter Island head up. But that's actually, like, there's a sun in the center. That's the core. I mean, I think that's what they're going with here as well. But that's also, isn't that there's part of the power source for the Godzillas, possibly.
I mean,
as well.
I am down for that. Like,
I really have no memory whatsoever about what the power source of Godzilla was. I also don't remember what was triggering the Titans coming back.
Well, they say he, like, ate a star, right? Like, that was in the lore, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah,
That's correct.
And
Yes.
so I wonder, though, if part of that is just getting the energy from the sun, or
It must be
What
nice
was-
to remember things.
what was
I feel
triggering
that
them
way.
coming
Yeah.
back is that because Scar King was plotting to invade the surface world. It was making Godzilla, and it was making Mothra call out to Godzilla, which was agitating the other Titans, which is a bit convoluted, I admit, but hey, monster wrestling.
I love that she can read those hieroglyphics like James Spader and Stargate.
I was saying
Just
she was reading it like it was Shakespeare. I was like, no. She was even like artfully, like poetically reading it. I was like, no, that's
works for me. I'm
it didn't
fine
work for
as
me.
long
I
as
was annoyed.
that's
It
just
actually
really,
did.
really
Why
funny.
why were you annoyed?
Just because she was just like, oh, and then blah 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 blah, blah, and she just had like really articulate, descriptive terms for things, and it's a picture. It's like and then the brave and loyal or whatever. I mean, it was just all this. It was like it's a picture. So I don't know. I just wanted a little bit
Maybe
of the
maybe maybe
of
she's
the.
also a slam poet when she's not being a
Yes.
monster
It could be,
scientist.
but I would have just liked a little bit of the and I think I would have actually liked for Gia to help her. Like I think it would have been cool if Gia would have been like, no, 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 that's actually this, and she's getting some of it. So Kaylee,
That would be kind of funny. That actually would be funny with them arguing about like
well, not even arguing, but just like her adding color to it. Anyway, it
sure.
just that bugged me.
Yeah, that would be cool. There's no time for it, but yeah, with some her correcting her grammar and reading the hieroglyphics, that could be it could be a cool moment. It reminds me of moments in Dances with Wolves, where she's
How
correcting
come
it.
you had to put the emphasis on dances? I'm curious.
Isn't it called Dances with
Dances.
Wolves?
It's not
Dances.
dances with wolves. It's dances with wolves.
I
Like
don't know.
I just thought that was funny.
It's not the only one that I do that with. I because as we've talked about, I call some of all fears the sum
Yeah,
of all fears.
Well, neither one of those was a normal way to say that. Anyway, sorry.
I'm just having
We
flashbacks to
digress.
like 30 Rock with I have marshmallows in my dungarees.
Well, that reminds me. Then talk about 30. That reminds me of Alec Baldwin talking about on SNL talking about the malignant tumors or whatever. Anyway,
Oh my goodness.
okay.
Such a good sketch. Okay, but we should move
Yes.
along. I think that actually we've probably hit on just about everything. I think we should get our final thoughts.
Did we want to
And-
talk about Ice Monster, or
I mean,
did we talk enough?
I
about
think
Ice
we've
Monster?
probably
I'm for more monsters all the time, but
if you want if you want to I'm actually totally open to it. If so tell I mean, I thought I don't have anything to add on Shimu, but I'm totally interested if there's something that you want to call out.
I feel like that we had a sympathetic bad guy, and I think we had a completely villainous bad guy in Scar King, and I think it's interesting that the sort of mirror character for Godzilla in this movie is actually the more sympathetic of the two.
Yes.
I was thinking of her. I was thinking of her like the Bumble in the the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Yeah.
Because the Bumble, when he's not in pain anymore, turns out to be quite tame and nice, and that's the same
Yes.
here.
Well, and turns on Scar King.
Mhm.
This character. Yeah, I know that we've seen this trope before, where there's a monster who is just simply being leashed by the bad guys and will turn on the
Abused,
bad
yeah.
guys. Yeah.
You want to talk about Frazetta imagery, though? Scar King riding on the back of Shimu.
Yes.
It's funny. Like the last one, I feel like there were several things that looked like Basil Gogo's paintings, and this one, I think they probably were looking at Frank Frazetta stuff.
Does Conan's Pizza still exist with the Frazetta art on the walls and everything? Oh,
yes, it does.
So great. That's
absolutely.
cool.
I took some friends there to the north location that has a lot of that still.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. There's plenty of booths still with Frazetta stuff. It's great.
Yeah. If you guys, if you're ever a listener, if you're ever in Austin, go to the original Conan's where they've got Frazetta art on the walls, and
under the table they've shellacked. There's a bunch of tables where it's Frazetta and Boris.
Awesome.
Yeah, they have them like just not only on the walls. Also, a lot of graffiti still written on the wood paneling in the booths, as I found. Bathroom wall style graffiti. So including
some giant gorilla art. So
yes,
totally. Not completely dissociated from our topic at hand tonight.
Was it Vallejo, Tony?
Boris
was it
Vallejo?
Boris Vallejo? Yeah. Okay. I really had to struggle to think of that. because I was thinking Boris Pasternak. No, and it was Vallejo. Yeah, gosh, those were the days. All right. So let's get our final thoughts, and then if there's anything else that you want to bring up that we didn't touch on, please include it, and then we'll come around and do our endorsements. Tony, I mean, I know I have a feeling that we often say this, not always, but often. We could probably talk about this one for a long time. But what are your final thoughts about Godzilla Kong?
So I mean, I definitely perhaps didn't love it as much as everybody else did, but I think it's good for a lot of the reasons that we talked about. Like, people are enjoying it, and that's awesome, right?
Mm.
Like, you can have your blockbuster and you can have your serious stuff, and I definitely dwell on all the side. Like, I like heady stuff, and I also like monster wrestling, right? So anything I had, like, I have quibbles, but they're my own stuff, right? They aren't important enough to even call out for, because it is what it is. I think they did a lot of interesting lore. I think I definitely agree with Drew that Hollow Earth, Kong, and some kind of animated show spinoff would be great as a kind of side thing to Monarch, which I really enjoyed. So and the fact that we keep with the Monarch stuff is cool. There's an interplay there that's really interesting. Yeah, it's a fun blockbuster movie. With, like I said, I enjoyed it. I'm not in love with it in the same way I've liked some other stuff. I still like the original. To me, that's one of my faves. But I get why people wouldn't enjoy that one as much either, right? Like, it's all kind of what you bring into it to me. I did enjoy it more than the previous Godzilla movie, so that's cool. And all the Kong stuff is really endearing. Like, like I said before, seeing him use traps and be Kong.
Yeah.
That's all that stuff of him being Kong in Kong World, fantastic. And it's got a cat like Godzilla in the in the Coliseum. And
God, we didn't even
that scene
touch
alone.
on
That scene alone, and the kind of follow up, pretty good.
We did not touch on whether I have no idea, and I wish we had somebody here who could tell us. Can a gorilla lay a tripwire? Like, is that a thing that a gorilla can do? I have no idea.
We have to think
Kong,
about, it's not like a normal gorilla, it's a Kong.
Yeah, I
Right.
mean, can orangutans have a Kingdom of the Apes or whatever whatever they are? I don't-
Do alligators breathe fire? Like,
What if God was one of us as well?
Yeah.
The great questions of our lifetime.
I just want to be on the cover of like a late '60s album wearing a medallion and like have like a title like, "Can a gorilla lay a tripwire?"
Yeah.
Okay.
That sounds like an article from those men's magazines we talked about, like the
Viet Cong using gorillas. Army
Yeah,
air
are
force
like,
runs.
that's a different
fighting.
spelling of gorilla.
Oh man.
Oh, there you go. Nice.
Oh.
But I guess those gorillas use it against whatever crab attacks or giant or snapping turtle mayhem. But it sounds like
That
those
wonderful
think
cover.
pieces of
Yeah.
could a gorilla
Yeah.
lay a trap?
San Antonio's Love Happy Girls. I remember that was one of the headlines on
What?
that same magazine.
What?
And yeah. That would be great, because followed that would be the medallion wearing you going, "Can gorillas set traps?"
Surrounded by his San Antonio love happy girls. That's hilarious.
There is Julia, this magazine, and this
Oh,
guy,
I got it.
weasels ripped my flesh. There's weasels.
Weasels, yeah.
There's weasels. And it also, in case you're not sufficiently enticed by the weasels, they're gonna tell you
How
about
could
San
you not be?
Antonio's Love Happy Girls. So, Julia, as a neighbor to San
Oy
Antonio's
vey.
Love Happy Girls, What were your
I was an
thoughts?
Austin Love happy girl.
Yes.
I enjoyed it. We didn't talk about something I actually liked a lot, which was the crazy Iwi or EB civilization.
Iwi.
I thought
Iwi,
it was
yeah.
Iwi, but I saw it written as EB, so I was like, huh.
Huh.
But I think it is Iwi. Anyway, they were really cool. I liked the idea that they communicate telepathically. I loved their crazy again with the Indiana Jones kind of image, or like I think you said romancing stone, but Indiana Jones style imagery of just the huge cavern of beautiful art and carved things and magical like this, like the whole Indiana Jones thing of something tripping not a trap necessarily, but like a starting a whole thing to like what was it that was it wasn't was it water or was it like lava? It was like that pours in to this like bizarre maze
Yes.
kind of thing, and then it opens up things. I just love stuff like that. So I
Yeah.
thought that whole kingdom was amazing. I thought it was so great that little Gia got to meet her people, but still decides that her actual people are her mom, which is great. So all of that was really neat. Just the exploration of like we talked about before, heritage and kind of connecting with your roots, but still feeling like you're at home with your your chosen family. All of that was really neat. So I don't feel like we hit on that enough, but yeah, I mean, I think we've covered it pretty well. Otherwise, all the things I liked about it, I thought I got a kick out of it. It was fun. It was funny. And I think the effects are pretty great. So yeah, I enjoyed it.
Wonderful. Drew, what are your thoughts?
For kids, I think that this is perhaps not as artful as -1, but I do think there is, like I said, there's room for both, and I enjoy both. It's the same reason, like I love Godzilla 54, but I also really love Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, which is probably the movie I guess this has the most in common with, because it even has Mothra breaking up a Godzilla battle to get them to go fight the boss monster. So yeah, this is a fun movie. It's a movie that I would watch with my own kids if I had a blast watching it.
Wonderful. I also, by the way, we didn't mention this, but I love the redesign of Godzilla. He gets amped up with nuclear power, and it becomes, his dorsal fins turn hot pink, and the color is just amazing here. Such neat color. I really enjoyed it.
And for some reason, a certain scummy part of the internet decided that was woke, and they hated it.
Do you know? I mean, I thought it was hot pink, like Paul Stanley's shirt in the "Let's Put the X in Sex"
It's
video.
just
So
the director's favorite color, and so he just put it in there.
I for one welcome our hot pink dinosaur overlord.
Or woke hot pink dinosaur overlord.
Yeah,
I mean, if that's what you're mad about, I don't know what to tell you. I don't. It's the MonsterVerse Godzilla. I mean, we have so many iterations of Godzilla, and also, by the way, you can just watch any of them. In fact, you can watch them on Criterion Channel, or you can watch them on HBO Max.
Not even the first time Godzilla has had pink dorsal plates, because Millennium Godzilla, but I guess
all of that. Just I don't even.
People who are upset about the color pink and thinking something is woke can suck on a dorsal plate, as far as I'm concerned.
They can. I invite them to vacation in sunny Rio de Janeiro.
Yes.
As close to the beach as possible.
Or the pyramids. Check out the pyramids.
Oh yeah, check out the pyramids too, everybody. I hear Rio and the pyramids are great this time of year. Please take all of your business right there.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Once again, I was just what was on my mind was, I mean, Paul Stanley rocked pink in the 80s, and I was like, all right, we're bringing back
Miami
the masculinity
Vice,
of pink.
I mean, everything
for sure.
Hey man, Elvis was the king. He wore pink. Godzilla's the king. He wore pink. There you go.
There you go.
All right. All right. Let us get our Drew. Did we get your final thoughts? Because I know we went off in the direction.
Yes.
Yeah, we were talking about the pinks. Yes, that was okay. So let's get our endorsements. I would love to hear what besides this Godzilla movie you guys have to recommend. And yeah, I'm all ears. So it was Tony to start. What's up?
I really enjoyed the Fallout series. Season 1 was awesome. I've been really digging that. This comes from somebody like, again, everybody's got whatever gamer opinions that they have, and as an adult, I can just listen to whatever I want. And so I have played all of the Fallout series a little bit. I don't know why I've never completed all of them. I don't know. I just get busy, and I play a lot of games, and so there's a bunch on my list that I still need to complete. So I actually re-downloaded Fallout 4, but really cool. And you don't have to, the cool thing is you don't have to be a fan. And it's in the way that it's rewarding if you are, or I guess to some people, maybe it's not rewarding because, I saw people like, they use the wrong kind of suits and I can't watch it. And that's fine. Please go just play Fallout. I don't know what to tell you about that. But I didn't have any skin in the game on that. And I thought it felt to me like the games in a lot of ways. It could probably even get more satirical, but yeah, I thought it was really good. I'm trying to think what else. I mean, mostly I've been working on Deserts of Mars stuff into the wee hours to prepare for some upcoming things. So that's where I'm at. We have a new guitarist, and so I'm hoping to play out more as well. So yeah, that's been my thing is doing music stuff and then also watching Fallout.
Wonderful.
I'm sure there was some things in between that, like still keeping up with Shogun and a bunch of other bits. But yeah. There's something else that I haven't seen it, but I think it's called Hundreds of Beavers. And yeah, Hundreds of Beavers, which has gotten, I'm trusting friends of mine. Enough of my friends have said, go see this movie. It's really hilarious. Okay. I need to do that. And it's coming to VOD. So I'm kind of stoked about that. And I also got my copy in, I haven't watched it yet, but I've seen it twice in the theater, Invisible Fight, which has, I think I'd recommend it, but now you can get it on disc from Kino. It has one of the best opening sequences of any movie I've seen, where people are in 70s Sabbath era, like platform shoes.
Mm-hmm.
Doing kung fu to Black Sabbath, and that's possibly one of the best things. It was like a laser focus of movie into like, how did you know that you made this movie just for me? But it felt like, but Invisible Fight is hilarious, and it's got Orthodox monks as instead of Shaolin, so it's fantastic. But you can get it on disc. I'm sure if that's the case, then it'll probably be on demand as well. So look for Invisible Fight if Sabbath and kung fu sounds like your bag as well.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Julia, do you have anything to endorse for us?
The only thing I can think of is something Tony had already endorsed, I think last week, which is X-Men 97. We did in fact catch up on the first 5 episodes, and yeah, if you I didn't ever like read the comics or watch the original X-Men cartoon, but this is just more of the same stories basically, but like I guess continued. I didn't watch the original, so I don't know.
Semi-continued and amped up in terms of, I'd say, sophistication.
Well, and also the quality is better. But yeah, we've really enjoyed it. It's really really exciting and interesting.
Did you see the
that was Drew, by the way,
in the last episode
who endorsed it?
Oh, is it Drew?
Yes.
We watched the first 5. So if there's been another one after
in the 5th episode, the Watcher makes.
I did notice
cameo.
that. Yes,
Okay.
I did notice that. Oh, Oahu, is that his name? Anyway, Uatu. Thank you. I was like, that's
Yes.
something. Yes. No, but anyway, so that was really, really good and interesting. So I'm looking forward to more of those episodes.
For sure. Drew, what about you?
So in a complete turnabout from this silly monster movie, I watched a fairly dark and serious indie werewolf movie directed by the star of Jacob's Wife, Larry Fessenden, who it's called Blackout, and it is now just released on video on demand services, so you can watch it, but it's not in theaters. Unfortunately, I would have loved to have seen it in theaters, but very low budget, but extremely well acted, and works well with, like, because it's not a big budget movie, like the werewolf makeup effects are actually very minimal, but they make them work within the context of its story. And it equates lycanthropy with alcoholism in a way that's interesting. And just it's very just character driven, and small and intimate, and yet still very scary and very visceral at times. And I hope people will go out of their way to see it, because I know there's a lot of good indie horror out right now, and I feel like something like this might be lost in the shuffle because it's not getting the promotion that even like Late Night with the Devil is getting. Like doesn't seem to be much of a push for it, but I thought it was terrific. Like I just was mesmerized. I put it on completely by random, and I didn't have any expectations for it, and I was just wowed by it. Like everything about it just worked for me. So it's called Blackout. I watched it on Vudu, but apparently it's also on Prime now. It wouldn't surprise me if it shows up on Shudder or Screambox eventually, but like seek it out before then. It is worth your rental money. Like it's I watched it for only about $5, and to me that was worth every penny, because I just thought it was amazing.
That's wonderful. So Larry Fessenden's Blackout. We'll leave it there. I don't have anything to add this week, so that's a good place to stop. I just want to say, come to the Facebook page. Tell us what you thought about Godzilla Kong. If there's anything that you think we missed, we want to hear from you, because it is our favorite thing in the world to just interact. So please come by, give us your suggestions. We got one more movie. We're going to do Late Night with the Devil, and then we're going to take a break because we got people graduating from college. We got,
We actually, I think we'll have to skip next week. We can come back to this offline because we're actually going to be traveling next week, so we'll have to do it.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Being next week and graduation.
So it looks like our break may even start sooner than I thought it was going to. We got couches.
Or we'll have a break and then another break.
Yeah. So my point is, though, come to the Facebook page. Let us know your thoughts. And everybody be kind to one another. And thank you very, very much.
Find that you can be friends like Godzilla and Kong. If they can put aside their differences, you can put aside yours.
After millions of years, right?
Yes.
Think about that. That's a long rivalry. Everybody, you can do it. We believe in you.
That's so wonderful. I love that.
Mothra believes in you as well.
That's true.
All right. If anybody can tell me if there was a Choose Your Own Adventure that revealed that the Easter Island things were computers, I want to hear about that. So, all right. Thanks, everyone. Bye. I'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night.